The research vessel Aegis drifted silently at the edge of the Trivian expanse, its hull gleaming faintly under the light of distant stars. It was humanity's first deep exploration mission into a sector known for strange signals and uncharted phenomena. For years, scientists had debated whether intelligent life existed here. Most thought it was unlikely. The planet they were orbiting now had never shown clear signs of civilization. Yet the unusual energy readings had convinced the Galactic Research Council to send a small team of specialists to investigate. Dr. Mara Lin, a xenolinguist with a sharp mind and a patient demeanor, moved slowly through the dimly lit corridors of the ship. She had spent her career decoding languages, gestures, and communication patterns of species humanity had only glimpsed through telescopes and probes. She had never encountered anything like this. There was a subtle tension in the ship, a feeling that something was watching, not through cameras or sensors, but in a way she couldn't explain. She paused outside the observation window and looked down at the planet below. The surface was covered in strange forests with leaves that shimmered in colors humans didn't have names for. Clouds of luminous mist floated above jagged mountains, and rivers reflected starlight in ways that seemed almost alive. It was beautiful, but Myra felt a flicker of unease. "Dr. Lin," a voice came from behind her. It was Commander Harris, tall and methodical, with a reputation for keeping his cool under pressure. "You've been at the sensors for hours. What do you think of the readings?" "I can't prove it yet, but I feel like the planet isn't empty. I think someone or something is aware we're here. Don't let your imagination run wild." "Doctor, the signals have shifted. They're almost rhythmic now, like pulses, not random." "Until now." She turned her head slowly, scanning the room. Everything seemed normal, yet her instincts screamed that she wasn't alone. At that moment, the lab lights dimmed slightly, as if a shadow had passed. Mara's eyes darted toward the corner of the room, and she saw it. A figure, slender and graceful, emerging from the darkness. Its movements were fluid, almost hypnotic, and its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. It was feline in appearance, but unlike any cat Mara had ever seen. Its body was elegant, covered in sleek, iridescent fur. Its limbs were long and muscular, yet it moved with a quiet, predatory grace. And when it turned to look at her, she felt a shiver run down her spine. Then she heard it. Not with her ears, but in her mind, clear and deliberate. "Careful, human, I hear everything." It tilted its head, studying her with an intensity that felt almost physical. She realized that it wasn't attacking, not yet, but it was testing her, reading her reactions. Every thought, every hesitation seemed to ripple across its expression. Commander Harris stepped forward cautiously. "Back away, everyone. Don't make sudden movements." No one had prepared them for contact like this. Not through gestures, not through voice, not through technology. This was direct, intimate, and completely unlike anything they had trained for. Mara's fear began to mix with fascination. She had spent years studying alien intelligence, imagining how first contact might feel. But this was beyond theory. She could feel the creature's curiosity pressing against her mind, probing gently, testing limits. "Can it read all of our thoughts?" Ravi asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Mara admitted. "But it can sense intent, emotions, maybe even reasoning. We have to be careful. Every thought, every hesitation could be visible to it. Keep it observed, but don't provoke it. Lin, I want you leading the communication attempts. Find a way to establish understanding." Then it stepped forward, every movement precise and deliberate, yet fluid as water. It stopped a few meters away, crouched, and fixed its gaze on Mara. The room seemed to grow quieter, as if the very air acknowledged the presence of something extraordinary. Then, in a thought that resonated like a soft bell in her mind, it said, "You are different from the others." Clever, dangerous. It was unpredictability. Humans could think in ways no algorithm, no alien mind, no sensor could fully anticipate. Their creativity, their chaos, their ingenuity, these were the weapons no one had accounted for. Ravi broke the silence. "Doctor, what do we do now?" "And we don't panic. If it can hear our thoughts, then fear will only give it power over us. We need to think like humans, act like humans, and maybe, just maybe, show it why humanity should not be underestimated. Let us see how far your species can go." But for the first time, she also knew that humans had something no other species might possess. The spark of unpredictability, the spark of imagination, and the courage to face the unknown. And somewhere in the quiet of the lab, the creature watched, listened, and purred, waiting to see what the humans would do next. The Aegis had settled into orbit above the strange, shimmering forests of Trivian Prime. Humanity's first contact with the Sayari, a species capable of perceiving thoughts, had not ended in violence, but the tension on the ship was palpable. Every crew member moved carefully, measured every word, and tried to keep their minds as neutral as possible. But Mara Lin knew it was impossible to completely control thoughts, emotions, and instincts. The Sayari could detect more than simple ideas. They could sense intent, fear, curiosity, and the subtlest sparks of doubt. The feline alien had not left the lab since its first appearance. Instead, it had begun to explore the ship in its own quiet way, moving like a shadow along the corridors, observing, listening, and testing. Sometimes Mara thought she caught a glimpse of its glowing eyes reflecting from the control room screens. Other times, she heard a soft mental whisper, teasing or assessing, always calm, always deliberate. It was Commander Harris who broke the tension first. "We can't just hide in the lab forever. We need data, we need understanding, and we need to find out if this creature is hostile or merely curious." "So how do we do that? It hears us, sees our intentions. How do we surprise it?" The Sayari, to their surprise, responded not with aggression, but with a low, rumbling purr. It followed their actions closely, sometimes appearing to anticipate what they would do next, but not always perfectly. Each mistake the crew made, each odd behavior, seemed to fascinate the alien. Dr. Lin watched this carefully. "It's testing us," she said one evening as the team gathered in the observation deck. "Every reaction, every hesitation, every plan we make, it is reading. It's trying to understand how we think. But here's the thing, it hasn't fully grasped human unpredictability yet. We can use that. Then we make it impossible for it to predict us. That's all we can do for now." Mara deliberately reversed the normal order of sensor checks, forcing the Sayari to adjust its expectations. Every action was a game, a challenge, and an experiment. The creature seemed intrigued. It would crouch low, its tail flicking slowly, ears twitching as it observed. Mara felt it in her mind again, a soft vibration, a mental echo of amusement. "Clever humans," it thought. "They are interesting." The Sayari were testing more than logic. They were probing emotional stability, stress response, and problem-solving under pressure. The humans struggled at first. Crew members argued more frequently, decisions were delayed, and minor mistakes multiplied. But slowly, Mara noticed something remarkable. The crew adapted. Where one human failed, another found a solution. Where the Sayari anticipated one move, humans made another. They learned to use their own unpredictability as a weapon. "Humans are messy," Mara said quietly to herself as she observed the latest experiment. "But we are resilient, creative, and dangerous in ways they can't predict. This is why humanity survives. We think differently. We adapt. We improvise, and the Sayari, for all their perception, cannot predict the chaos we can create." It seemed to enjoy the games, the puzzles, the mental sparring, but it was growing cautious. It had underestimated humans. The next day, the crew tested a new strategy. They simulated a critical system failure, drawing the Sayari's attention and focus. As expected, the creature's mental probing intensified. Mara deliberately thought contradictory thoughts, one part of her mind projecting calm, another part projecting worry, and yet another part projecting curiosity. The Sayari's reactions became slightly delayed, confused, its normally precise predictions faltering. "This is it," Mara whispered to Ravi. "We can see the cracks in its perception. It expects linear thinking." Humans are not linear. Each time the Sayari adjusted, humans shifted again, creating layers of unpredictability. Through it all, Mara noticed something even more astonishing. The Sayari, for all its mental acuity, began to show signs of respect. Its purring became less playful and more contemplative. Its thoughts conveyed curiosity mixed with caution. Humans, unlike any species we have known. Perhaps formidable. The Sayari were powerful, capable of reading emotions, intent, and even subtle manipulations. One misstep could provoke an attack or worse. Mara knew that the game was far from over. Every day required vigilance, creativity, and courage. One afternoon, a sudden alert rang through the ship. The sensors detected a movement on the planet's surface, a coordinated shift in the forests below, as if the Sayari had summoned others. Mara's heart raced. The creature had not acted alone. Humans were now facing a species with not just perception, but intelligence, strategy, and numbers. Commander Harris moved quickly. "Lin, what do we know?" "They're not attacking, not yet, but they are aware of us. And I think they're testing limits again. They want to see how far we can adapt, how unpredictable we can be, and we need to prove ourselves without giving them reason to see us as prey. Mara reminded them that the key was unpredictability, creativity, and courage. Humans survive because we don't follow patterns, she said. We adapt, we think, we improvise, that is our advantage. Mara focused, projecting calm curiosity, daring it to misjudge her. She felt its mental probing, slight hesitation, and most surprising, a flicker of admiration. These humans, dangerous, their minds unpredictable, fascinating. But the real challenge lay ahead, proving that humans were not only clever, but capable of outthinking a species that had never known defeat by intellect. As the Aegis drifted silently above the alien world, the Sayari observed, listened, and contemplated. Humanity had made its first mark, not with strength, not with weapons, not with diplomacy, but with thought, creativity, and the unshakable courage to face the unknown. And somewhere in the quiet of the lab, Mara could swear she heard the soft, approving purr again echoing in her mind. Interesting, humans. Perhaps we have underestimated you. Yet even in the face of a predator capable of reading minds, the humans were ready. They had something the Sayari had not anticipated: the chaos of imagination, the spark of courage, and the unpredictable brilliance that defined humanity. And as the stars shimmered above Trivian Prime, the humans prepared for the next phase of the game, unaware that every move, every thought, and every choice was already being measured by minds that had never before encountered a species so audacious, clever, and dangerous. The crew of the Aegis had settled into a careful rhythm. Each day brought new tests, subtle challenges, and constant observation from the Sayari. The feline creatures were patient and calculating, moving like shadows through the corridors, probing human minds with a precision that left no room for error. Yet humanity, fragile and unarmed, had begun to show its resilience, not through strength, but through creativity and unpredictability. Mara Lin studied the readings carefully. The Sayari had increased the intensity of their mental probes, focusing on individual crew members, testing their reactions, and pushing them to their limits. Mara noticed patterns emerging, patterns in the aliens' perception, their expectations, and their responses. And in those patterns, she saw opportunity. "They think they understand us," Mara said quietly to Commander Harris during a briefing. "They believe they can predict our behavior, anticipate our choices. But human thought isn't linear. Our creativity, our imagination, our unpredictability, that's our advantage. If we use it wisely, we can turn their own perception against them. So we're going to trick them." While one part of the mind projected fear, another projected curiosity, and a third projected confidence. The Sayari's reactions, once precise, now showed slight delays. Its predictions faltered. The creature's eyes, glowing faintly in the lab lights, flicked with subtle uncertainty. Ravi, watching closely, whispered, "It's working." It hesitated. "But this is only the beginning. We need to escalate." Each move was designed to create misdirection, to challenge the alien's assumptions, and to stretch its mental capacity. The Sayari reacted immediately, its attention splitting across the ship. It was agile, intelligent, and incredibly perceptive, but the humans' unpredictability forced it to constantly adjust. Mara felt its thoughts pressing against her mind, probing, analyzing, and trying to regain control. Clever, chaotic, frustrating, the Sayari thought. These humans defy expectations. They are unpredictable. But the humans were not the only ones learning. The Sayari's observations revealed flaws, hesitations, and fears that could be exploited. Mara began to plan larger maneuvers, tests designed not only to protect the crew, but to demonstrate human superiority in mental strategy. One evening, she gathered a small team in the lab. "We're going to conduct a controlled experiment," she explained. "We'll create a situation that seems critical, but it's actually a setup. The Sayari will focus all its attention on one problem, and will use that focus to execute a different action entirely. Humans survive by taking calculated risks, by thinking in ways no other species can predict. If we do this correctly, we'll show them that we are not just capable, we are formidable." Crew members rushed to contain the supposed problem, while Mara and a smaller team prepared the real task, analyzing the alien's responses and subtly altering environmental readings to confuse its perception. The Sayari appeared in the lab, crouched low, its tail flicking, eyes glowing faintly. It projected a sense of calm calculation, but Mara could feel a hint of tension. Its mental projections showed slight hesitation, a break in its normally perfect awareness. "Interesting, Humans are playing games, the Sayari thought. They are dangerous in ways I cannot predict. The crew had not only avoided danger, but had demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that the Sayari could not fully anticipate. The aliens' glowing eyes narrowed slightly, as if acknowledging a new reality. Humans were not merely prey or experiment. They were competitors, capable of mental feats that challenged the Sayari's superiority. Mara debriefed the crew afterward. "That was more than a success," she said. "We've shown that humans are capable of strategy, improvisation, and mental resilience. The Sayari may not admit it, but they respect us now, not as creatures to be studied, but as beings who can challenge them." The Sayari increased the complexity of their mental probes, creating illusions and scenarios designed to confuse, stress, and provoke fear. Crew members faced visions of failure, of danger, and even of personal fears projected into their minds. But each time, humans adapted. They communicated subtly, improvised solutions, and used misdirection to regain control. Mara noticed a remarkable change in the Sayari. Its thoughts now carried a hint of admiration, almost like a teacher observing a student who had surpassed expectations. Humans, unpredictable, resilient, formidable, it thought. Perhaps we underestimated them. They projected false confidence when uncertain, projected calm when fearful, and projected curiosity when cautious. Every human decision became a blend of strategy, creativity, and unpredictability. The Sayari, despite its incredible perception, struggled to keep pace. Ravi whispered one night, exhausted but exhilarated, "They can't predict us anymore. Every time they think they know what we'll do, we shift." It projected mental images, soft vibrations of thought that suggested dialogue. Mara responded cautiously, using neutral, curious projections. Slowly, a rudimentary understanding began to form. Humans and Sayari were learning to interact, not through words, not through gestures, but through thought itself. Yet danger remained. The Sayari's power was immense, and one misstep could be fatal. Mara reminded the crew constantly, predictability is weakness, creativity is strength. Then came the day of the greatest test yet. Sensors detected a coordinated movement on the planet below, a group of Sayari approaching structures on the surface. Mara realized they were no longer acting individually. They were strategizing, testing human responses in coordinated maneuvers. Commander Harris addressed the crew. "They're increasing the stakes. This is no longer a small game. They're treating us as potential threats or competitors. Now we need to show them that humans can outthink even the most perceptive predator in the galaxy." These humans, they adapt, they improvise, they are cleverer than expected, the Sayari thought. Perhaps dangerous. By exploiting the aliens' reliance on mental anticipation, the crew had demonstrated human ingenuity in its purest form, unpredictable, adaptive, and bold. The crew celebrated quietly, not loudly, not with cheers, but with a shared sense of accomplishment. They had faced a species capable of reading minds and had not only survived, they had gained the first advantage. Myra reflected on what had happened. The Sayari were powerful, elegant, and intelligent, but they had not accounted for the chaos of human thought, the creativity born from curiosity and courage. Humanity's unpredictability was not a flaw, it was a weapon. The soft, approving purr returned in Myra's mind, a reminder that the Sayari were watching, learning, and respecting the humans. "Interesting humans, perhaps we have underestimated you," it thought. Mara smiled faintly. "They have," she said softly. "And they will continue to. Humans survive because we adapt, because we improvise, because we think in ways no one else can. That is our greatest strength." The Sayari would test them again, push harder, and try to regain their advantage. But Mara knew something vital. Humans were no longer merely reacting. They were shaping the course of the encounter, using unpredictability and creativity as their shield and sword. And somewhere in the quiet of the lab, the Sayari crouched, watched, and purred. It understood at last that humans were not to be underestimated. They were unpredictable, adaptive, and above all, clever. The galaxy was watching, but for the first time, humanity had proven that it could hold its own, not with weapons, not with force, but with thought, imagination, and courage. The mental duel had reached a new level. Humans were no longer prey. They were participants. And perhaps in time they would become equals, or even the first species to challenge the Sayari in ways no one had thought possible. Myra Lynn closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the presence of the creature in her mind. The soft purr echoed faintly. Humans dangerous, clever, unpredictable, perhaps formidable. Humanity had survived the first true tests. and the Scifi had begun to understand what it meant to face a species that could think beyond expectation. The next challenge would be harder, but Mara knew one thing with certainty. Humans had something no other species possessed: the spark of imagination, the courage to act against expectation, and the brilliance of unpredictability. And that was enough, for now, to turn the mind of a predator into a puzzle it could not solve. The humans of the Aegis had learned quickly. Days of observation, mental duels, and unpredictable maneuvers had taught them one vital lesson. The Scifi, for all their perception and intelligence, could be outwitted by creativity and courage. Mara Lin felt it in every fiber of her being. Humanity's unpredictability, chaotic as it might seem, had become their greatest weapon. The Scifi had taken notice. The feline creatures prowled the corridors of the Aegis, silent and calculating, but their glowing eyes no longer carried amusement or idle curiosity. There was respect now, and perhaps even a hint of caution. The humans had survived multiple tests, disrupted precise predictions, and demonstrated strategic thinking that the aliens could not fully anticipate. Yet Mara knew better than to grow complacent. The Scifi's intelligence was immense, and one error could be fatal. The next test would not be simple misdirection or controlled experiments. It would be a challenge of endurance, strategy, and mental resilience on a scale that could affect the entire orbiting mission. Commander Harris convened the crew in the observation room. "They're escalating," he said, voice steady but tense. "We've seen isolated tests, but now it's coordinated. They're not just observing, they're strategizing, and we need to adapt fast. This is what we've been preparing for. The Scifi are testing our limits, seeing how far humans can adapt. It's no longer a game of individual maneuvers, it's a battle of wits on a ship-wide scale. Every action, every thought, every decision matters." Humans would project confidence when uncertain, calm when anxious, and curiosity when cautious. Every move would be designed to challenge the Scifi's perception, forcing the creatures to divide their attention and recalibrate constantly. The first test came swiftly. The Scifi created an elaborate scenario, projecting mental constructs that simulated catastrophic system failures throughout the Aegis. Lights flickered violently, alarms blared, and holographic displays showed cascading malfunctions. Crew members could feel the pressure, a weight that seemed to press on their minds as much as their bodies. Yet the humans remained composed. They had trained for this. Every misstep they had made in the past had taught them to improvise, to adapt, and to exploit the alien perception of fear. Mara led the team, projecting calm authority in thought, while other members executed complex, layered maneuvers to stabilize the ship and create controlled chaos in the mental projections. The Scifi reacted immediately, its attention splitting across multiple simultaneous scenarios. Normally precise in predicting behavior, it now hesitated, recalculating, unsure of which signals were real and which were decoys. Its glowing eyes flicked rapidly, ears twitching in concentration. Mara could feel its mental probing intensify, pressing against her thoughts, searching for predictability, but finding none. Humans, chaotic, adaptable, clever, the creature thought. Perhaps dangerous. They were no longer merely participants in the Scifi's tests. They were shaping the encounter itself. Over the next several days, humans pushed further. They coordinated entire sequences of maneuvers designed to mislead, confuse, and outthink the Scifi. Holographic projections were used to create false corridors and phantom crew members. Sensor arrays were recalibrated to produce contradictory readings. Crew members projected conflicting thoughts in waves, forcing the alien mind to constantly adjust. The Scifi began to show signs of fatigue. Not physical fatigue, these creatures did not tire in the human sense, but a strain in their perception. Their normally flawless calculations faltered, small delays appearing in responses that had once been instantaneous. Mara recognized the moment as critical. Humans had forced the Scifi to confront the limits of their perception, a challenge no other species had achieved. During a brief pause in activity, Mara convened the crew. "They are learning from us," she said quietly. "But so are we learning from them. Every hesitation, every miscalculation, every moment of distraction can be used to our advantage. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we adapt faster, think creatively, and act unpredictably." They had moved from reaction to initiative, from survival to strategy. The next phase came without warning. Sensors detected coordinated movements on the planet below, a swarm of Scifi emerging from the forests, approaching the research structures. Mara realized immediately that the alien species was testing human response to real-world consequences, not just simulations. The stakes had expanded beyond the ship. Commander Harris addressed the crew. "They're testing our response in the field now. This is no longer confined to the Aegis. We must demonstrate the same unpredictability, creativity, and coordination outside the ship as well. Our strength isn't in speed, strength, or perception. It's in ingenuity. They may anticipate patterns, but they cannot anticipate innovation. That is what will save us." Holographic projections simulated false patrols, while real teams moved through unexpected routes. Humans projected calm in thought, masking their concern for subtle threats and curiosity where caution would have been expected. The Sayari were forced to split their attention. Mental projections flickered with strain, trying to follow every thread of activity, every signal of human intent, and every layered misdirection. Mara felt their frustration, curiosity, and increasing respect. Humans, resilient, unpredictable, perhaps formidable, the creature thought. For the first time, Mara noticed a subtle change in the alien's demeanor. Its glowing eyes carried not amusement, not idle curiosity, but cautious attention. It observed humans as one would observe a rival who had proven their skill and cleverness. The purr, once playful and soft, now resonated in her mind as a low, contemplative vibration, a sign of respect. The human's success was not without strain. Crew members faced moments of doubt, fear, and fatigue. Each mental duel, each field maneuver, required focus beyond anything they had previously encountered. Yet the challenge brought out humanity's best traits: collaboration, creativity, and courage in the face of the unknown. Over the following week, the humans escalated their tactics. They developed layered sequences of decoys, distractions, and direct actions designed to manipulate the Sayari's perception. Each maneuver was unpredictable, blending deliberate misdirection with genuine adaptation. The Sayari struggled to anticipate human behavior, its normally flawless mental calculations faltering under the weight of uncertainty. Mara observed this with quiet satisfaction. Humanity had transformed from prey to competitor. The Sayari were forced to acknowledge a truth they had not expected. Humans could think, adapt, and act in ways that defied prediction. Then came the decisive encounter. The Sayari, now fully aware of humanity's unpredictability, projected a coordinated series of scenarios across the Aegis and the planet below. It tested every crew member, every drone, every sensor, and every projection. Yet humans responded with a combination of improvisation, ingenuity, and daring that no other species had demonstrated. The alien mind faltered, hesitated, and adapted in real time. Its normally precise predictions failed repeatedly, leaving room for human initiative and strategic action. Mara realized that humanity had achieved something extraordinary. They had forced the Sayari to confront the limits of their own perception, a challenge that no other species had ever presented. The creature, sensing its limits, projected a final thought across Mara's mind. "Humans, clever, unpredictable, dangerous. Perhaps we have underestimated you." Humanity had not only survived, they had proven themselves worthy of recognition, respect, and perhaps even fear. Their unpredictability, ingenuity, and courage had turned the tables on a species that had believed itself unmatched in perception. The Aegis drifted silently in orbit above Trivian Prime, the humans inside aware that the first true tests of their ingenuity were far from over. The Sayari were learning, adapting, and perhaps reconsidering their assumptions about humanity. But for the first time, humans were no longer merely reacting. They were initiating, creating, and shaping the course of first contact. Mara reflected on the journey so far. The Sayari were formidable, elegant, and powerful, yet they had not accounted for one vital factor: human creativity. Humans could think in ways no algorithm, no calculation, and no predator could fully predict. They could improvise, adapt, and turn chaos into strategy. That was humanity's greatest strength, and it had been demonstrated in full. The soft, low purr returned in Mara's mind, resonating with a mixture of approval, curiosity, and respect. Humans, capable, unpredictable, formidable. Perhaps we will watch closely. As the stars shimmered above Trivian Prime, the humans of the Aegis prepared for what lay ahead. The Sayari were formidable, but the humans had demonstrated a new power, the power of mind, ingenuity, and courage. Humanity had survived, adapted, and begun to shape the galaxy's perception of their species. And somewhere in the quiet, the Sayari crouched, watched, and purred. Respect had been earned, caution had been instilled, and the first seeds of recognition had been planted. Humanity was no longer invisible. They were not merely survivors, they were thinkers, strategists, and competitors. The galaxy was watching, but humanity had begun to show that it could not only survive, it could inspire, challenge, and even redefine the expectations of a predator that could hear every thought. The humans of the Aegis had reached a turning point. Days of tests, mental duels, and strategic improvisation had transformed them from prey into formidable participants in the eyes of the Sayari. The feline aliens had observed, probed, and calculated, yet every attempt to predict human behavior had been met with creativity, courage, and adaptability beyond their comprehension. Dr. Mara Lin stood on the observation deck, staring at the shimmering forests of Trivian Prime below. She could feel the weight of the challenge in her mind, the subtle pressure of the Sayari's awareness pressing like water against a dam. But for the first time, that pressure was no longer terrifying. It was a measure of respect. Humanity had survived. Humanity had adapted. Humanity had proven itself. Commander Harris approached, his expression both tense and proud. "They've escalated their tests again," he said, voice calm but firm. "We're about to face the most complex scenario yet." The Sayari projected a series of intricate mental scenarios across the Aegis and the planet below. Illusions of catastrophic failures, conflicting priorities, and impossible dilemmas pressed against every human mind. Sensors flashed erratically, holographic projections simulated collapses, and crew members felt waves of panic, designed, Mara knew, to test every instinct, every decision, every ounce of mental resilience. The humans responded in kind. They had learned the patterns of the Sayari's perception. They divided their focus, projected contradictory thoughts, and created controlled chaos to manipulate the aliens' expectations. One team simulated panic in the lab, while another executed critical procedures with calm precision. Holographic decoys led the Sayari's attention in circles while real tasks progressed undetected. Mara felt the creature's presence pressing in her mind, testing, calculating, and probing. Yet, for the first time, she sensed hesitation. Its predictions faltered. Its normally flawless awareness could not keep up with the layers of human ingenuity. Humans, unpredictable, clever, dangerous, the Sayari thought faintly, almost admiringly. They adapt faster than expected. Every crew member contributed to the unpredictability, projecting confidence where there was doubt, calm where there was fear, curiosity where there was caution. The Sayari's perception strained under the complexity. Its thoughts flickered with rapid calculations, trying to anticipate outcomes, trying to adjust for every human improvisation. But the humans shifted faster than it could follow. Every prediction it made was met with contradiction, and every assumption collapsed under the weight of ingenuity. Mara smiled faintly. "This is it," she whispered. "This is the proof that humans survive not by strength, but by creativity, courage, and the ability to think beyond expectation." The Sayari projected a combined scenario, a challenge designed to test both mind and spirit. The holographic simulations now merged with the mental projections, forcing crew members to react simultaneously to multiple crises. The planet below shimmered with the faint traces of Sayari activity, their numbers visible through careful observation, and every action they anticipated from the humans was met with improvisation. Mara took a deep breath, centering herself. She projected calm, confidence, and determination. Ravi, standing beside her, mirrored her projections, amplifying them with subtle mental cues. Commander Harris coordinated the ship's crew with silent gestures and precise thought projections. Every human acted in unison, yet unpredictably, weaving a pattern no Sayari calculation could anticipate. The creature's eyes glowed faintly as it observed, and Mara sensed its respect growing. Its purr resonated in her mind, a deep, approving vibration that conveyed something closer to acknowledgement than amusement. Humans, capable, unpredictable, formidable, it thought. Perhaps we have underestimated you entirely. Small teams on the planet deployed decoy drones and false signals, creating a layered web of activity that confused the Sayari's perception. Simultaneously, aboard the Aegis, crew members executed precise maneuvers, stabilizing systems that the Sayari had projected as collapsing. Every challenge, every simulated catastrophe was met with ingenuity, adaptation, and courage. By the end of the day, the Sayari paused. Its mental probing slowed, its calculations paused mid-thought, and the glowing eyes fixed on Mara. There was no aggression, no amusement, only respect, recognition, and a quiet acknowledgement of humanity's capabilities. Humans remarkable beyond expectation, dangerous, clever, unpredictable, the Sayari thought. Myra felt a sense of awe. Humanity had done what no other species had achieved. They had survived, adapted, and outwitted a predator that could hear thoughts, predict behavior, and sense intent. They had turned chaos into strategy, unpredictability into advantage, and fear into courage. Commander Harris approached, voice calm but tinged with wonder. They've stopped their tests. They're observing differently now. With respect, humans were no longer invisible in the galaxy. They had made their first mark, not with weapons, not with power, but with thought, creativity, and the courage to face the unknown. For the crew of the Aegis, the lesson was clear. Humanity's greatest strength had never been physical. It had been the spark of unpredictability, the courage to improvise, and the brilliance of imagination. Against an enemy that could read every thought, humanity had prevailed. The Sayari, for their part, seemed to consider the humans differently now. They crouched in silent observation, watching movements, processing patterns, and understanding that this species was unlike any other they had encountered. Mara felt the subtle vibrations of thought again, the soft, approving purr echoing in her mind. It was no longer playful. It was contemplative, admiring, even cautious. Mara spoke quietly to the crew. We've survived the impossible. We've turned perception into opportunity, fear into courage, and unpredictability into advantage. The galaxy is watching, but humanity has proven its place. We are clever. We are adaptive. And we are not to be underestimated. And that is what makes us dangerous, remarkable, and unstoppable. Mara turned her gaze to the Sayari, crouched silently in the lab. Its glowing eyes met hers, and she felt the mental acknowledgement as clearly as if it had spoken aloud. Humans, formidable. Perhaps we will watch closely. Perhaps we will learn. They had adapted, outwitted, and impressed a species far older, faster, and more perceptive than themselves. They had proven the essence of HFY, courage, ingenuity, and the ability to rise against impossible odds. As the crew rested that night, Mara reflected on what had been accomplished. The Sayari would continue to observe, to learn, and perhaps to challenge again. But humanity had demonstrated its greatest strength, the ability to think, adapt, and act beyond expectation. They had turned the predator's perception into a stage for ingenuity, and they had emerged victorious, not through violence, but through intelligence and courage. The galaxy might have doubted humanity, might have underestimated them, but the Sayari would not. Humans were clever, unpredictable, and formidable. The stars themselves seemed to acknowledge it, shimmering above a species that had survived the unthinkable and emerged with respect, recognition, and a reputation that would echo across light years. And somewhere, faintly, in the quiet of her mind, Myra heard the soft, low purr once more. Humans capable, remarkable, dangerous, clever, unpredictable, perhaps unstoppable. The Sayari had been challenged, the impossible had been faced, and the spark of unpredictability had lit a new path for all who would follow. The humans of the Aegis had not only survived, they had triumphed. And in the vast expanse of stars, they had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be human.